Hello, I'm John Adams, editor of Digital Photo, and welcome to this video lesson which is all about enhancing the foregrounds in your landscape pictures. Now, foreground interest is vital to a landscape image. And to be honest, if you don't have some foreground interest in a landscape, then you haven't got a landscape picture. So it's really important to get something in the bottom third of the frame. And that sometimes means working really hard. Here I had to actually wade into this lake in North Wales to get this shot of a rock in the foreground here. But even after you've put in lots of effort to get that foreground interest, sometimes it needs a little bit more. And in this video we're going to see how we can enhance a foreground to beef it up slightly. Give it a bit more presence and a bit more for the viewer's eye to lock onto and take them through the rest of the frame. Once we've done that and seen how we can seamlessly increase the size of our foreground interest, we're then going to do a few extra tricks, one to darken the sky a bit to really hem in the top of the frame, and one to warm up the picture and add some noise just to smooth the join between the old foreground and of course the new enlarged foreground. So let's get started. Let's close this one down and we're going to open up foreground JPEG from the disk. There it is there, and it'll pop up on screen. Now this technique works in Photoshop or indeed in Elements, so what we're first going to do is pick up the rectangular marquee tool from the toolbox. There it is there, we've picked that one up, and we're going to make a selection across the entire lower half of the image here. We'll just draw out that a bit more, there we go. We're just going to go right the way across here like so, taking in the rock and a good slab of this foreground expanse of water as well. All we're going to do now is punch this selection we've made into a new layer. So we need to have our layers palette up on screen. So just go up to where it says Window and choose Layers. And your Layers palette will appear. Now we've got this selection made, hold down Control on the keyboard and hit J, and you'll see Layer 1 appear. That's just taken that selected area from the background layer we were working on, and it's just copied it and put it into its own layer at the top of the layers stack. Now that's done, we're going to hit Control and T. And by doing that, you get the transform bounding box around the image. Let me just move the layers out the way a second. There we go, move it off the side. I'm going to create a bit more room around the canvas. And then you can see this bounding box. If we then hold down the Shift key, we can transform the rock and its surrounding water in proportion. So holding Shift does things in proportion. We're just going to make it a bit bigger in the frame like so. And then we'll hold down Shift and pull this corner as well. What we're looking for is an increase of about 140%. So if you look up in the options bar at the top of the screen, you can see we're at the moment at 121%. So all we need to do, if we want to, is just select width or height, tap in 140, and then click the link icon to give us 140 in the width and the height boxes. And we've now enlarged our foreground rock by 140%, and all we need to do is move it around to get it into position. And I think somewhere like there looks fairly good. Yeah, that should do the trick. So once it's in position, all you need to do is hit Return on the keyboard or click the tick in the transform box to make that transformation happen. Our next job is to blend this new area in. I mean, if we just bring our layers palette back, there they are, we can switch it on and off and see the original and the new one, but we clearly need to sort out this water so we don't lose this nice curved effect from the wide angle lens. We want to keep all of that, but we want to blend in the new foreground rock with the old foreground water. So if you're using the full version of Photoshop, we're going to do this with a layer mask. So we'll look at that first, and then we're going to look at the Elements variant, which uses the eraser. So layer masking first and foremost, all we're going to do is click on this Add Layer Mask icon at the bottom of the Layers palette. Click on that once, and we get this white rectangle appear alongside the enlarged foreground. What we're going to do is pick ourselves a large brush. So we go across, pick up the brush tool, and we're going to check our opacity is set to 100. Flow is set to 100, and for the brush size we want something like 600 pixels. Now at the moment you can see up here in the options bar that the brush size is 900, so to reduce the brush size just tap the left square brackets key to go down. We'll take that down to 600. Reducing, just tap the left square brackets key. To increase brush size, tap the right square brackets key. So we've got a size of about 600 pixels, then we want to make sure that we're going to paint black into the layer mask. Now, our black foreground colour swatch is already set here, but if you want to double check, just hit D on the keyboard. That sets white as foreground, black as background when you're in layer mask mode, and then hit X. Now we've definitely got black as the foreground, and all we have to do, making sure the layer mask is still selected and has the rectangle around it, just start painting. And look at that. all the black areas in the mask, we can see this black area here, they reveal what's underneath, and all the white areas keep what's already there in this top layer. So if we just shift that layers palette to a little to one side, we can then just paint around our rock like so. We can keep the detail where we want it and lose the detail where we don't want it. And just paint around, shift that layers palette. There we go, something like that, until we get a really nice natural blend that looks like it was always there. We can leave some of that sky reflection coming through, that's nice. And I think that's looking pretty good. Bring that round. Yeah, I think you'd be pretty hard pushed if you saw that in isolation. You wouldn't know that that rock had been enlarged by 140%. And you can see there in the layer mask, the black areas are revealing what's underneath and the white areas are holding what's already there. So the large rock gets through and all the curved water horizon there and everything else actually comes through from the layer beneath. So that's a fine way to use layer masks in Photoshop, and the beauty of layer masks is if you go wrong. Let's imagine we're painting away, getting our nice blend in, and oops-a-daisy, we go over the rock. Now that's bad news if you do it with an eraser, but of course if you do it with a layer mask, all you need to do is swap to white, just click on this double-headed arrow or press X on the keyboard, and you can just paint the detail back in. White restores and black erases. So you can go until the cows come home and really get a perfect blend around the rock. Okay, that's the layer mask variant. Let's now get rid of that and see what you do in elements using the eraser. Okay, let's just drag that to the trash can. We don't want to apply the mask, so we'll just delete that, get rid of our layer mask, and we're back where we started with our layer punched into layer 1. What we're now going to do, if we're using elements, is pick up the eraser tool, and we'll use the same kind of size brush. We want an opacity of 100, flow of 100, and a brush size of about 600 pixels on a nice soft edge brush. All we do is the same kind of thing. We've got layer 1 selected here and highlighted at the top of the layer stack. All we have to do is just start rubbing out that layer. So we remove with the eraser the parts that we don't want, and of course we have to be very careful not to remove the parts that we do want. So we need to keep this rock intact. I'm going to use a slightly smaller brush size now, just nudge it down a couple of points. There we go. Now if I just move the layers palette, get rid of that bit of detail on the side there, there you have it. And that's looking pretty good. Again, a nice blend because our job's quite easy in this example. The eraser doesn't have the versatility of layer masks. You can't paint back if you've lost something. But when you look at the difference in price between Elements and Photoshop, you can probably put up with that. Okay, now that job's done and we've got our new foreground nicely blended into the rest of the scene, what we're going to do is darken this sky just to hem in the top of the image a bit more. This is a standard landscape trick, and we're going to do this using the lasso tool in the first instance to make a selection of the area we want. Let's just move that back a bit over. There we go. Now we can see our layers as well. Pick up the standard freehand lasso tool. We're just going to make a rough selection, like so, around that sky area. There we go. Okay, now we've done that, we want to feather the edge of that selection. So just click on the Refine Edge tab, and then you can set it up in various ways to show the amount of feathering you have, or the softness of the edge you have in your selection. Now this one's quite a useful one, the red one. So we'll click onto that quick mask view, and what we're going to do is use a feather radius of about 120 pixels. So we'll make sure all these other boxes are set to 0. Get all these on 0. And then in the feather box, just slide that to round about 120. If you're using an older version of Photoshop or Elements, just go to Select Feather and then move that same box to about 120 pixels. Once that's done, click OK. And then what we're going to do is click on the Adjustment Layer icon in the Layers palette. So click on that, and from the drop-down list, select Levels. This brings up our Levels palette, and to darken the sky, we're just going to move the black point inwards a little. There, you see it darken a bit? That's too much there, but something like that looks pretty good. Then maybe the middle slider just a touch as well. Yeah, then you can click the preview on and off just to see the difference you've made, and that gives you much more drama in the sky. So I'm going to keep that change there and just click OK. So now that's done, we're going to use Levels again as an adjustment layer. We're going to apply a warm-up effect. So to do that, click on the Adjustment Layer icon, select Levels from the list, And you can see in the levels palette that we've got the channel box here that says RGB. Now we've just used the RGB channel to make the whole lot darker at the top. But what we're going to do now is make a change just to the red and the blue channels independently. So if we click on this and select red from the list, if we now move this middle slider, we can make the whole image a bit more red, or the opposite of red, a bit more cyan. So what we need to do is get it to a value over 1, so I think something like, 1.13 looks pretty good. And then before you click OK, switch to the blue channel, and we need to add some yellow. Now why have we picked blue if you want to add yellow? Well, the reason is yellow is the opposite of blue. So if we move the slider one way, we get blue tones, and if we move it the other way, we get yellow tones. So if we go back to our default position of 1 in this middle slider, if we move it a little bit to the right, that's probably about right there, about 0.9. So a value less than 1 in that one gives us a yellow tinge to it. And if we then click the preview, we can see it has kind of brought the sun out on the picture. There's much warmer tones present there, and that's generally what you're always going to want in a landscape image, a little bit of warmth. So we can try that preview, and if we're happy, we just click OK. Right, we're certainly getting there now, but what we need to do to avoid any mismatch between the enlarged area we have here and the background area is a little bit of sharpening. If we zoom in really tight, we may see that there is kind of a mismatch between the two areas. And to avoid that, we're going to sharpen this layer with the rock on it. So click on that layer, layer 1, that's the one with our rock, and then go up to Filter, Sharpen, and choose USM, Unsharp Mask. If you're using elements, just go to Enhance Unsharp Mask and you'll get the same dialog box up on screen. Now how much sharpening you use depends very much on the size of your image and sometimes the nature of your image as well. But a good ballpark starting point is an amount of about 150, something around there, a radius of round about 1 pixel, and a threshold, you can set that to 0 if you want. So about 150, 1 and 0 is a good starting point for unsharp masking. And you can look at the preview there on the screen, or indeed just look at the image itself, and you can click that preview on and off to see the difference it makes. And hopefully you can see that it kind of matches up the sharpness of this enlarged portion with the rest of the picture. So once you've done that and you're happy with the settings, click OK, and our sharpness should just about be in balance between the two areas. But one thing we have done in enlarging this area by 140%, we've also enlarged all the artifacts and all the noise and all the other things that go in an image. And to disguise things like that, you need to add a bit of grain and just wash some grain over the whole image. Now digital grain is called noise, and we're going to add it in a very special way. We'll just make a bit of room in the layers palette. What we're going to do is create a new layer right at the top of the stack. So we click on the top layer we have at the moment, which is this levels adjustment layer. That's the one we did our warm-up effect on. We're just going to create a new layer. So click on the create a new layer icon, and you get a new layer 2 sitting at the top of the stack. What we're going to do is fill this with grey. So if we go to Edit and choose Fill, we can then, in the contents box, select 50% grey. Click on that and then click OK, and the whole image disappears behind this grey screen we've just created. But don't worry about that, because we're going to use a blending mode on this grey layer, and that's done here. If you click where it says Normal and then go down to the Overlay group, anything from this group should show through OK, but I'm going to pick Linear Light. Pick on Linear Light and it looks as though nothing has happened. If we come back to full screen by double clicking the hand tool, it looks exactly as it did before. So our grey layer has been made invisible. But anything we do to that layer is going to become visible. So if we now go to Filter, Noise, and choose Add Noise, we actually get this sort of nice grainy speckled effect that covers the entire image because it's working on this layer we've created and using the linear light blending mode to show through the picture. Now we need to pick the right amount. We've got rather too much at present at 20%, so we're going to give ourselves an amount of around 5%. That's a bit better. And we're going to make sure that monochromatic is ticked and so is Gaussian. So once you've got those settings in, click OK, and the job's pretty much done. One thing though, if you're going tight, just zoom in tight on your rock, you may think, well, that noise is actually far too prominent, it's too loud and it's quite distracting. All you need to do is reduce the opacity of the layer the noise is on. We've put it on the separate layer to make all these things possible. So all you have to do is click on the opacity slider and then just bring it into line. And I think somewhere around 30% should do the trick nicely. You can just see the noise coming through, and it's helping disguise the join between the enlarged rock and the standard image beneath it. So there we go. Double click the hand tool to go back to full screen, and there we have our enlarged rock. There's our starting point, with the small rock in the foreground, but I think you'll agree by increasing and enhancing the size of that foreground, we've turned this into a much more powerful and a much more dramatic image. Thanks for watching. See you next time.